What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams continues today, and it's making its next stop in Seattle, Washington, where the Washington Huskies could be making a move towards the top of the ranks in the Big Ten Conference in 2025. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel even further, there are a couple things you can do. First off, do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hey, you might as well ring the bell because turning on notifications will ensure you don't miss an upload, especially not one of your favorite team during this year of prediction season. I just started my new job in the sports media industry, and if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do in my profession while still being up to date what goes on this here very YouTube channel, please go ahead and give me a follow on social media. The handle right down below here at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever your preference to call the platform, and Instagram. You can also email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. And with all that said and done and out of the way, let's talk about Jedd Fisch and the Washington Huskies out of the Big Ten Conference in 2025. Year one in the Big Ten for Washington was pretty okay. 6-6 overall record. They did some good things, but there is a little bit of work for improvement. However, 2025 could be a really, really sneaky sleeper for this Husky team in one of the toughest conferences in college football. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? We were first going to go through a roster overview, which the offense is going to be over here to the left and the defense will be over here to the right. At the end of all that, we'll go through the Washington Husky football schedule. I'm going to break it down and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is going to tell you what I think about the Washington Huskies in 2025. Before we dive on into that, right down below me, your returning production numbers are according to ESPN. They do factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. And then right down below that are your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025. Both the rankings, of course, are according to 24/7 Sports. All that said and done, out of the way, let's talk about the jargon around me. Starting out over here with Jimmy Doherty and the Washington Husky offense. Last season, your starting quarterback, for the most part last season, was a former Mississippi State transfer in Will Rogers. 2,458 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. It was an okay year for Will to close out his collegiate career. Not the year that I think a lot of Husky fans were hoping for, especially considering some of the weapons that you did have in this wide receiver room. Talk about them in just a little bit. But you do have a very interesting, possibly very dynamic option in this quarterback room that's going to be taking over that starting job for you this year. In fact, I know he's pretty good, and I know he can be pretty dynamic. It's Demon Williams. Apologies for the earphone. It's how I make sure I sound good. Sometimes they fall out. It's whatever. Demon Williams is going to enter as a true sophomore this year. Demon, someone let me know how that first name is pronounced. Maybe I'll find out if I pause the video later. But Williams, last season, 944 yards, 8 touchdowns to just 1 interception from last year, 282 yards and 2 touchdowns as the team's second leading rusher last season as well. Yes, sack yardage is included in that as well. Guys, he could be one of the most exciting, especially exciting young quarterbacks in the entire country. If he showed a ton of flashes and overall consistency in what he can really do for parts of last season. If he stretches that out over an entire 12-game year, we'll look at Washington's schedule after we're done talking about all of this. But if Williams can really perform and he can really take what he did last year and expand upon it, improve upon it, show us that he is fully capable of that over a full season, oh man, I think Washington's going to have themselves a really, really good leader under center for this Husky program. Now, you move on into the talent surrounding him. Let's go to the backfield. Jonah Coleman, 1,000-yard rusher last year that averaged 5.5 yards per carry, had 10 touchdowns on the ground. He is going to be coming back and could be one of the country's best with some really, really good depth sitting behind him there as well. Adam Mohammed will also be coming back, as well as Jordan Washington. You got a couple freshmen into that room as well. Again, it's going to be led by Jonah Coleman. Really exploded last season and could have another really spectacular season. A lot of people expect him to. I do as well here in 2025. Now you move on into the wide receiver room. You do lose a really big piece to the room from last season, and that is Giles Jackson. He's now with the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champs, and was a really good player for the Huskies last year. 893 yards and 7 touchdowns for Jackson last year. However, you had a guy very, very close to him in terms of receiving yardage, and that was Denzel Boston, 834 yards, and actually led the team with 9 touchdowns last season in 63 catches. Was another really, really popular target from both Rodgers and Williams last season. So Denzel Boston going to be a really good piece. Kevin Green is another good returner into this room, and then Omari Evans is entering in from the transfer portal. He was at Penn State last year where he had 415 yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't know if I would consider Omari Evans an elite weapon. I kind of feel like Denzel Boston and even maybe Kevin Green could be a little bit better than what Omari Evans is, but I think overall Omari Evans has a pretty high ceiling, and without a shadow of a doubt, he will play a very big role in this wide receiver room this season. Very well could end up as their leading receiver. That wouldn't surprise me, and I think I misspoke and kind of threw shade at Omari Evans to what I said earlier, so I'll backtrack on that. I don't think he's a fantastic downfield threat. I do think Denzel Boston is. I do think Kevin Green can be. So Evans, I think, knows the kind of role he's going to play in this wide receiver room, and I think we'll find some really good success. Overall, though, tight end room, Kaliki Latu is now with the NFL's Buffalo Bills, so it'll be Decker DeGraff that is going to be taking over as a true, well, okay, he, and then as well as Quentin Moore, probably going to split a little bit of time. Quentin Moore is the more experienced option as DeGraff is going to enter, much like Williams, the quarterback, as a true sophomore, but I still think the tight end room has got itself plenty of weapons, and this pass catching room as a whole, I think, will be pretty solid for Williams here in 2025. Most of the line is going to be filled up by transfers and up and comers. You are replacing a lot of starters on this offensive line from last season. You do have a couple transfers, most notably at the left tackle position is going to be Carver Willis. He's going to be coming over from Kansas State to fill in a gap there. A lot of young talent will be filling the shoes. You're going to have the Hatchet brothers. I believe they are related. Landon and Girian. Hopefully I said that first name right for the other one. If there's no relation, egg on my face. But you're going to have the Hatchets up there up front as well, projected to be starting according to ourlads.com. This was an offensive line last season that, let me find my number, allowed 39 sacks last season. Yikes. That number has got to get better. And actually, interestingly enough, Demon Williams got sacked a whole lot more than Will Rogers last year, in a third of the passing attempts that Will Rogers threw last season. It is because of Williams' ability to get outside of the pocket and scramble. Sometimes he could take negative plays. I do think that's an area where Williams is going to want to improve. But again, as long as Williams can show last year, by the way, another number I didn't mention, the 944 yards, 8 touchdowns, just 1 pick, did it on nearly 80% completion percentage, 78.1 to be exact. Guys, I don't expect him to have that completion percentage over a full 12-game season, but if he can even show flashes of that or do something close, like I said, man, Washington's got a lot of good playmakers led by Jonah Coleman, a lot of good guys in this wide receiver room. It's up to Demon Williams to, I think, determine how the bulk of this offense is going to run, and the offensive line has got to get better from last season as well. You do have a new defensive coordinator this year, and for Ryan Walters, it was just rough sledding at Purdue. That's a program overall that's in a really, really tough spot, and Ryan Walters did have a lot of building to do, but he's going to get back to manufacturing his absolutely fantastic 3-4 defenses that you saw at Illinois when he was a defensive coordinator. Again, he is one of the bright young coaches that is in our game right now. Just didn't work at his first head coaching spot in Purdue. I think give him a couple years, build up this Husky defense, he could get another head coaching job. But of course, his focus right now is to build up this Husky defense that did see its fair share of struggles last season. The front seven for Washington is losing great pieces all around. The top 6 defensive linemen, if I could spell, you're supposed to put an E in alignment, Again, top 6 defensive linemen in terms of tacklers and linebackers. I think that's combining the two, if I'm not mistaken. So top 6 defensive linemen and linebackers in the tackling department combined are all gone. So basically your top 6 front seven players in terms of tackles from last season are gone. And again, those are some really, really notable players like Carson Bruner, who is now going to be with the Steelers. He was a triple digit tackler for you last season. You're also going to be losing Alfonso Tuputala, who was your second leading tackler last year, also did have 3.5 sacks. Another top five tackler, Sebastian Valdez, now with the San Francisco 49ers, and you can go on and on and on. This is the defense that's going to be losing a lot of really, really good talent, but it does well in the transfer portal. Transfers are going to enter throughout with some good returning pieces throughout the front seven. Again, you do still have some solid returners, especially in the defensive line room. Elanius Davis, hopefully again said that first name right. Apologies if I didn't. Isaiah Ward, they're going to be returning to the defensive front and overall defensive line linebackers. You do have a lot of experienced pieces that are going to be second stringers, at least according to ourlads.com, although it wouldn't surprise me to see guys like Deshaun Lynch, my apologies, Logan Sagapulu, Anthony Ward, guys like that get some good playing time, especially maybe even as starters this season. But you do get a lot of transfers in here. Tai Uyunglele is coming in, and Ontario Thompson. Those are both defensive line transfers. In the linebacker room, Exree Alexander is going to be coming over from Central Florida, where he had a 68 tackle season last year, formerly two of the Idaho Vandals. And then Tariq Al-Ukta is coming over from Washington State, where he had 76 tackles, 51 of them by himself as a linebacker with the Cougars, and of course, the rival here for the Huskies last season. Your lead tackler in the defensive backfield is going to be gone. Again, that's not your lead tackler overall. That's your lead tackler in your backfield. And I will try my best with this name. Cameron Fabukulanen is going to be gone out of, I believe, the safety room. Yes, he is gone out of the safety room. Read off his stat line: 54 tackles, 2 pass defended, did have 2 interceptions, which was second on the team last season. The aforementioned Carson Bruner, your lead tackler at the linebacker position, was the guy that led your team in picks. And of course, he is gone. However, a defensive back leader in Ephesians Prysock is going to be coming back. He did have 6 passes defended last season. There is still plenty of experience here in this unit. I do like a lot of the guys that are going to be coming back here, as well as some of the transfers coming in. I do also have to mention the likes of Thaddeus Dixon. I do not believe is with the team any longer as well. He may very well have entered the transfer portal. He did. He is now with the North Carolina Tar Heels. And there are a couple other defensive backs that have entered the portal in there as well. Jacob Manu is a guy coming in through the transfer portal. Same thing. Or no, sorry. I am looking at the wrong thing. So Jacob Manu is a linebacker entering through the transfer portal. Takario Davis, there we go, that's the name I wanted, is a defensive back coming over from Arizona. They both are coming over from Zona, so apologies for the mix-up. Takario Davis going to be a pretty good, I believe, corner transfer for them. Yes, he'll end up playing the right side. CJ Christian, Alex McLaughlin do have some other good pieces returning to surround Ephesians Prysock in there as well. Apologies for the mix-up and any mispronunciations, especially that of Fabukulanen. I'll just double down on it. Why not? Special teams. Let's show love to the kickers because they are people too. Grady Gross is going to return as your primary place kicker, while a new starter will take over the punting duties for the Huskies this season. Again, for the offense, it is up to Williams to, I think, determine how far it goes. I think the rest of the talent is there. Let's see what Williams can do at the quarterback position, which I think going to be pretty good. And you do have a really good defensive coordinator that I think going to do a good job at building this Husky defense this season. But can this dark horse team navigate what could be a tough schedule? Well, let's find out my thoughts on that right now, because you look over this way. This is the 2025 football schedule for the Washington Huskies. But before we dive into this, let's look at some numbers right down below me. Odds courtesy of FanDuel. They are current as of recording this video, and as always are subject to change, but it does just give you some nice context as to how good the odds makers think Washington is going to be this season. Plus 6,000 odds. Those are pretty long odds. I think they're in the bottom half of the Big Ten in order as far as odds to win the conference. And yeah, a lot's going to have to happen for Washington to get to the playoff and win the national championship. That win total set at 7.5, which I think is a very difficult number to try to figure out considering the schedule that you do see over here. I think the first 2 games for Washington are going to be some pretty simple wins. I do think, again, staying at home, they will beat Colorado State, who is now going to be without Torrey Horton, one of the Mountain West best receivers. They still do have Braden Fowler Nicolosi in that ranks, but I am a little concerned about some of the other pieces that Colorado State's losing both offensively and defensively. Washington should have no trouble getting past the UC Davis. I think going to end up at the end of the day being a real easy win for this Husky team. So you get your first bye week of the season before you go on the road and play Washington State in the Apple Cup. This is going to be a very interesting game. Washington State had a ton of success last season. It was because John Mateer exploded onto the scene. Ben Arbuckle was a really good offensive coordinator. Both of those cats are now gone, and I just think Washington State can struggle this season. Zevi Eckhouse is not necessarily a bad quarterback, but he's no John Mateer. I'm really wondering how this offense is going to be ran under a new offensive coordinator. And I mean, you got transfers up the you know what coming in to the defensive side of things. You do, have a lot of returning pieces that are probably going to end up starting for you. At least this is according to ourlads.com. But man, a lot of your depth is being replaced by transfers. Even a lot of your secondary and back seven guys are going to be transfers starting for you. There's just a lot of change over at Washington State. And again, I think Washington can be poised to make a pretty big leap this season. So I like the Washington Huskies in here. I think Williams and Pullman and company going to be a little bit too much for this Washington State defense. Ohio State is up next. And look, there's no reason why Ohio State can't repeat as a national champion this season. You lost a ton. The entire defensive line is going to be new. You did lose some really good players in the defensive back end. Offensively, top two running backs are gone. Quarterback Will Howard is gone. Emeka Egbuka is gone. But you look at this Ohio State roster, it's still supremely talented. You got the best player, probably offensively and defensively, on in college football. Best offensive player, the wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Best defensive player is that safety in Caleb Downs. And Ohio State is still going to be spectacular this season, as what I believe is going to be, look, the Apple Cup is going to be played hard, but as far as talent goes, this is going to be Washington's first real test, and I think they're going to see some struggles here in this one. I don't think there's going to be enough in the Washington secondary to slow down everything Ohio State can throw at you with their pass game. I think Julian Sainz going to be a really good quarterback for the Buckeyes this season, and Ohio State still is going to have a pretty solid run game. They're going to start playing to their strengths a lot more offensively because of who their offensive coordinator is. It's Brian Hartline. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and I think the Husky secondary is really going to struggle with that. Ohio State is also a team defensively that, even though without Jim Knowles, Matt Patricia is a wait and see hire for me, but he did build some pretty good defenses in the NFL. So I think this Buckeye defense still going to hit hard, be very competitive, going to fly all over the field. They still got some dogs surrounding Caleb Downs in that defensive front and linebacking room. Ohio State did add some good transfers. Really like the Buckeyes again as a team this season, and I think Washington's just overall going to have a lot of trouble. However, I do think this is a very tricky game, and if Ohio State sleepwalks through, I think Washington's got enough talent to put a surprise on the Scarlet and Gray. I just don't see it happening. Ohio State gives Washington their first loss of the season. However, I do think Washington going to be able to win their next few games as they go on the road and play the Maryland Terrapins. Billy Edwards is gone. You lose some really good skill position players, and the defense at Maryland, I just think, is really going to struggle this season. Maryland, I think, going to sit towards the bottom of the Big Ten Conference, and Washington going to be able to win that one. You do get to come back home and play the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Rutgers, to me, a very interesting case study because their Big Ten schedule is tough. It really, really is. And I think there are a lot of teams in the conference this season that are going to take a step forward. Rutgers plays a lot of them. Washington is no different. I think Washington overall going to be way too talented, and I just don't think Rutgers has the ability offensively now without Kyle Monangai in a pass game and Ethan Kaliakmanis that, look, unless he can take a superb step in the right direction, I don't really see this pass game being that great either. I do like CJ Campbell, that transfer running back that they did bring in, and the Rutgers defense can still hit hard. I just am not too confident about Rutgers being able to slow down everything that Washington can throw at you. And if Washington already wasn't in full rhythm by the Apple Cup or for that game against the Scarlet and Gray, they will be here, and they will carry that momentum to a potential really, really interesting road game against the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan was a solid team last season. They are going to be better than they were last year, especially the quarterback play. Bryce Underwood is coming in to play quarterback for Michigan. He is going to start. I know Mikey Keene's an experienced transfer. Bryce Underwood is going to start, the number one player in the country. if he's anything like the scouts and the people surrounding this program believe he's going to be an absolute star. And because the quarterback play is going to get better, the wide receiver play is going to get better. You did enter in some really talented transfers to pair with some nice returners that you already do have. Trying to fill in the shoes of Colston Loveland, that's going to be a big challenge. But this Michigan defense, even though the traditional star power that has been there over the past 3 or 4 seasons is not there this year, they still got some really, really nice pieces and potentially more NFL draft picks on that side of the ball than they ever have, as well as some really nice transfers. I think the Michigan defense is a big reason why they win this one. And if it was at home, maybe I pick Washington to pull off the upset, kind of like they were able to do last season, but I just don't see it. I do see Washington being able to, or I should say, I do see Michigan being able to beat Washington there in the Big House. Illinois is a team I like a lot this season, and kind of like with Michigan, I think this Illinois defense is just going to fly all over the field. You brought in some really, really important transfers. The offense, I think, is going to be good enough to get you by, and it even could be a little bit above average. Luke Altmaier proved a lot of guys wrong last season, proved a lot of people wrong last year after there were a lot of questions coming out of the 2023 campaign. He plays like that again. Illinois' offense, I think, is going to hum pretty smoothly. And while I don't think it's going to be dynamic or really, really explosive, I think it'll do enough to help grind down opposing defenses. And much like Michigan, man, where I think Washington will struggle with Illinois, is just that hard-hitting defense that the Illini are going to bring. It's what Brett Bielema likes to play with, and there you go. Illinois, to me, is my biggest college football playoff sleeper. I really, really like that team, and I do believe that Illinois will beat Washington on the road. Then you get your bye week, and to me, this is probably the most pivotal game of the season because, to be quite honest with you, I can see Washington pulling off an upset at home against one of the 2 tough teams that I've already mentioned, Ohio State or Illinois, or even that game at the end of the season that we have yet to preview. To me, this is a very pivotal game for Washington to determine, okay, what's their final record going to be, but it's a more pivotal game for Wisconsin. It is a game that Wisconsin desperately has got to come away and win this one because, look, you're deep in the season. Wisconsin probably going to sit right around the bowl eligibility line here. This is a vital game for this Badger program, and I think they get it done. I think Washington is probably a little bit more talented than what Wisconsin is. This is college football. Sometimes the most talented team does not always win. Sometimes desperation and momentum can prevail. Luke Fickell's trying to save his job this year. Wisconsin is getting Billy Edwards coming in. Really good quarterback, in my opinion. Some good wide receiver pieces and running back pieces return. And I think the defense is going to take a step forward from what we've seen over the Badgers in the past couple of seasons. You force a turnover or two. I think you put Washington on the ropes. In a very, very close game, I think this can be considered an upset in a very pivotal game for the Badgers. I do think that Bucky is going to be able to get it done. However, you're on a 3-game losing streak right now. There is no way Washington is going to continue that against Purdue. Purdue, Barry Odom, you got your work cut out for you. Again, that's a program that, again, wasn't necessarily left in a bad spot by Ryan Walters, but young head coach trying to figure it out for the first time being a head man. I think it's going to be interesting now that Ryan Walters is going to come over and play and coach against his former squad in Purdue, even against the Illinois Fighting Illini there as well. Purdue's just in a rough spot. They got a lot of rebuilding to do. UCLA, it's a job of, it's not how good I think Nico is going to be, even though I do think Nico can take his game to a new level. The pieces around him, I think, are solid. I don't know if they're good enough, and that UCLA defense really, really concerns me ever since DeAnton Lynn left for USC. So Washington goes on the road and beats UCLA. And this game at home, I just think, again, the Oregon defense hits really hard. They're going to punish this Washington offense. And, again, Washington can get that one done, but I do believe that Oregon, the better team, will prevail in the rivalry matchup between the 2 schools. So overall, you take a look here, 7-5 for Washington. I got to be honest with you, I think 8-4, maybe even 9-3, well within the cards here. Ohio State, trap game for the Buckeyes. Illinois, trap game for the Illini. Even it's a trap game there. And look, if Wisconsin still doesn't figure things out, Washington can win that one. I think they can even get that road win against Michigan as well. it's a tough schedule. There are a lot of tough teams on the slate for Washington. But if Williams excels, I think there are a lot of good pieces around him. Ryan Walters improves this defense like we know he can. Watch out for the Huskies this year, man. This is the team that can be poised to be a Big Ten dark horse and be even better than I think they're going to be. 7-5, don't think it tells you quite what Washington is. They're going to be a really good team this year. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Long video. They're just getting longer. I'll promise I'll try to cut them down. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.